cool. Thank you. Otherwise, otherwise we would have forgot again. Okay, so turns out I slightly exported the package, and this player isn't actually supposed to be here. So what we're gonna do really quick is we're gonna delete these child objects of the player, as well as the components of character controller, rigid body, box collider, circle collider, and player movement, just so we can start from fresh again. So yeah, you should just have this player game object that has a sprite renderer, and when we play the scene, it's kind of just floating there. And the goal is, so I guess I should back up a bit and talk about the tutorial. And this tutorial is basically just going to be about some basics of working within the Unity 2D realm. And some topics we're going to cover today are a little bit of tile mapping, a little bit of 2D movement and character controller, a little bit of animation, camera controlling, and a little bit of pathfinding. And if we really have enough time at the end, then we're also going to add 2D shooting. So that should be exciting. But yeah, so the goal is to get this into like a workable environment where our player can run, jump, crouch, and jump, and like kind of like run around this platform level. And so we're gonna figure out how to do that. And so right now, this player just has the sprite render on it, and it doesn't really interact with anything. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna go ahead and drag this character controller script. Your Unity might look a little different than mine because I've been trying to figure out what I like, but there should be a character controller 2D script that is in your folder already. When you imported the package, it didn't put anything in my scene. Did you double click on main right here or no? Because it should have imported this main scene. And can anybody else confirm that that worked? Okay, cool. Yeah, so you're just gonna, yeah, yeah, anything with this little symbol is usually a scene, and you can just double click on it to get everything loaded in. And so we're just gonna have this player object with just the character controller script. And so I guess this tutorial is a little strange because this time we're not entirely working from scratch, unlike the other 3 tutorials we've, the past 2 tutorials we've had. This character controller script is actually something that I use decently often when I work in 2D, and it's made by the legendary YouTuber Brackies, which he based it off of a Unity character controller. And if we look at it really quick, then it's kind of a lot that I don't really that I can explain if we have time, but kind of the idea of Unity, or like part of the good stuff about Unity is how a lot of it is collaborative and online in terms of like public open source stuff that provide foundations for games. And so this is just a publicly available script that kind of controls when a character can jump, if he can crouch or uncrouch, and to flip the character based on which direction he's moving in. I could go over some basics of this later, but the idea of us just importing this character controller script is that a lot of stuff from Unity can actually be already found online because people have already kind of figured it out and have kind of like optimized it in a sort. So that's why we're just going to use a publicly available character controller script. But you can see that if we click play, we still can't quite control our character. And that's because the character controller doesn't actually handle the input of the game, so we're gonna have to do that ourselves. Okay, so okay, so let's just go over what's in this character controller script really quick. And you can see here how there are a lot of public fields within the character controller 2D script, such as jump force, crouch speed, movement smoothing, air control, what is ground, ceiling check, ground check, crouch disable collider. And so that's kind of a lot, so we'll take it one by one. Jump force is kind of the idea of like how hard a character can jump when we send the jump command. and 400 is kind of like the impulse that gets sent. 400 is like a measure of the impulse we send to the character's rigid body once we jump. The crouch speed is obviously how fast the character can move while crouching. Movement smoothing is something that is really important in character controllers, and it's the idea of like kind of whenever you press like A or D on a keyboard, it's kind of like instant. So like, but like we don't always want the character kind of always snap to that like instant press. So movement smoothing is just kind of the idea to make it like move a little smoother in the world. Air control is just if we can control ourselves while falling in the air or not. And here is what is ground, which is actually going to be the first thing that we modify. What is ground is kind of this field that if we go into the character controller script really quick. What is ground is kind of this, where is it? What is ground? Is this idea of a layer mask, which we'll get into a bit more later. But a layer mask is kind of a mask determining what is ground to the player, and we get to determine what is ground, and we want to determine what is ground because obviously it's a platformer. We kind of want to be able to, you know, jump on platforms and fall from platforms. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to set it to everything besides the player layer. Sorry, we're actually gonna have to add a layer, and we're gonna call this player. And we're gonna say it's everything besides the player. And so, again, this what is ground is kind of taking in every single layer, and if an object from that layer has a collider box, then we're gonna treat that as ground. And we can stand on it and it'll reset if we can jump or not.
What is a layer?
Yes, so what is a layer? Okay, so what is a layer? You can see a layer in the top right in the inspector, right where my mouse is. Unity objects typically have different layers depending on what function we want them to have on the scene. And so the player layer, the player is currently on the player layer, which is kind of a custom layer that we added through right here. And we also have like default, transparent effects, raycast. The idea of a layer is just to place all objects that kind of have the same function, like either it's a background object or like we want it at the very front. And so like we just want to like run behind it. It's basically just like a classification of objects so that we can interact with it through a uniform way. Does that make sense, Emily? Or do you want me to get into it? Cool. So yeah, what is ground is a layer mask that takes in several different layers and kind of uses it to grab every object of that layer and treat that as ground. So that's the idea of what is ground. And okay, so now we're a bit more set to start moving the character on. And in order to move the character, we're actually going to need to add a rigid body to it. Rigid body is something we kind of went over for tutorials 1 and 2, but it's a component that basically allows this player object to now be treated with physics within the world. And so if we click play, you can see kind of just falls, which isn't exactly what we want, but it's a little bit closer because now it kind of obeys physics. And so in order to properly work this, we also need to add colliders to it so that it can fall onto these platforms, which it's a little hard to see because of the background, so I'll turn it off. But these tiles have little green collider boxes around them, which we already, which was set up in the scene when I loaded it in. So because these, so since these have colliders, pretty much all we need to do is add a collider box to this player. And the way we do that is going to be collider. And we're going to add a box collider to this guy. And we're going to scale it down to size so that it kind of aligns with our sprite properly. So we're gonna click that, and let's move it down this way, and this way. Cool. So yeah, we kind of went over this with the rollerball, but that's the idea of kind of having colliders to help the object obey physics. And finally, we have to we're gonna start creating the movement script. I'm gonna go. Hopefully, I'm not going to. How did I change the size of the collider? Oh, gotcha. Yeah. So the collider can be edited if you go under the box collider component and click edit collider. You can click on these little dots on the edge of the boxes and kind of like click and drag them to fit your sprite. Also, if I'm going too fast, just let me know. So we now have the box collider and our fox properly floats on the level, but we still can't quite give it input. Like obviously, if you press WASD, it's not quite doing anything. So what we're gonna do now is we're going to create a movement script to actually handle the input. And right now you have this player movement script within the assets folder, but we're actually going to code it ourselves. So we kind of want to just delete that, sorry. We're gonna delete that and we're going to create our own. And so we're gonna say script, we'll say player movement and create that as a new script. Create and add, boom. Cool. And then now we just want to double click this script and edit it within Unity 2D, or sorry, edit it within Visual Studio. And now we're gonna see, does anyone have any ideas based on, like, if anybody went to tutorial number 2 on what we're gonna try to do in this script? Where do I click to make the new script? Okay, so if you go back to here, you click add component at the right, at the bottom of the inspector. And then the way I create scripts is I just kind of type in the name of the script and then new script. And then that should automatically create a script within your assets folder and attach it to the player object. And then you just double click this to edit the script. Yeah, okay, so now we actually want to handle getting the movement of the player. So what we're gonna do is, gotcha. We're gonna go within the, we actually want to be able to use this, we want to be able to use this character controller 2D script since it actually handles a lot of the physics and logic of the player. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a public variable and it's going to be of the type character controller 2D. And let's just call this controller. And so you can see if we save that and look back at the script, we can see that we now can drag in this character controller. And so we're just gonna click player and drag that into this data field. Oh, oops, sorry, please ignore that. And it should have grabbed the character controller component and dragged it into the data field. And so now we actually want to be able to use the methods within this character controller. I'll show you guys real quick. The methods within this character controller the method we're particularly interested in is this move function. And this move function takes in a float in terms of how far to move on the x-axis and 2 booleans on if we want to crouch or if we want to jump. And so in order to do that, first we need to take an input. And so in order to do that, we just go ahead and the way we take input for Unity is input.getAxis raw horizontal. And so this is basically going to give us a value between -1 and 1 based on how far the player or the actual person playing the game is pressing in the horizontal axis. But we actually want to store that, so we're just going to go ahead and define this as float speed equals float direction actually equals input.getAxis raw horizontal. And so once we do that, we're actually going to define void fixed update. You don't have to make this private. And any guesses what we're going to do in void fixed update? Oh, sorry. Okay, so in order to properly move this character, we have gotten the input to move it on the x-axis. So the next step of what we want to do is we actually want to move our character in that direction. So the way we do that is we're going to call this character controller's move function, which again takes in a float, a boolean, and another boolean. So we're just gonna go ahead and say controller.move, and we'll say direction. Oops. Direction. Oh, okay. Sorry, we have to define this here. Whoopsies. Direction. And then we'll just say false for now. And so basically what this script right now is doing is it's just going to receive the input of the actual player, and then it's going to move that player in that direction. And let's test if this works. And this will be like the basic building block of a platformer. Oops, it's not working yet. All right, technical difficulties, sorry. Oh, yes, whoops. .time, not fixed .time. That should help. Yeah, so right now I forgot to actually give it a time.fixedDeltaTime parameter. And time.fixedDeltaTime, it doesn't let me drag the character. Yeah. Do you mind posting a screenshot in the Discord and Jarrett can try to get to you? But otherwise, did you define it as public? An important thing is to define this as public so that you can drag it in and then save it. Interesting. Yeah, Jarrett can go ahead and take a look, or one of our other officers that are on call. Or you can describe the problem up to
Don't ask me.
Okay, so let's test this one more time. I might just be forgetting something. Okay, what am I forgetting here? Sorry, technical difficulties. So there's also a tutorial on bug fixing. So what we're gonna do is debug.log, and we're actually gonna print out direction because I want to see if it's properly taking in the direction. So let's just try that. So right now it is properly taking in the direction, but it's not quite moving us in the direction we want. So part of it is, oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. I forgot to actually say, under this, we actually need to create 2 empty objects. And so I forgot to mention this when we created the character, but something good, useful to do when doing platformers is actually working the character in multiple hitboxes and having different checks for the player. And so the way we have different checks for the player,
I already have the checks for some reason. Does anyone
yeah,
else?
I actually imported it with the checks.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, but I didn't intend to
Oh,
because I
you just don't
kind of
have it.
wanted to
Okay.
talk about it. So I'll just make them real quick. Check and a ceiling check. Check. And what these two are going to be are just empty transforms, which are just XY position rotation scales relative to the player that we're just going to go ahead and move around so that we can check if we're touching the ground or if we're touching the ceiling. And so these are some pretty good estimates of it. And we just have to go ahead and drag those into the ground check and the ceiling check. And so now that should cause us to not have as much of an issue. And also, something that I wanted to explain later, but I need to explain now, is that it's kind of awkward to have a box as a collider for the player, because if we go ahead and drop our player right here, you can see he kind of tilts a bit, and also the collider isn't as accurate as we want it to. Can I show how to do the checks? Yeah. So what I did was I just made a empty object, and an empty object only has a transform. And so we just want to basically use these transforms as reference for this main script, because these ground check and ceiling check parameters take in transforms. And so what we do is we just make a game object. That game object stores a transform, and then we drag it into these fields. For sure. And so if we freeze the rotation of the rigid body right here.
Peter asks, why not use the player's transform? Honestly, I'm kind of confused by that too. Why is it just some random object?
So the reason why I like to have a parent and child kind of thing is because sometimes you want to check if there's a ceiling above the object, above the character, and sometimes you want to check if there's ground below the character. And so we have we could obviously just use the player's transform with some sort of displacement on the y-axis, but people tend to find it easier to just kind of make child objects relative to the parent that kind of store that displacement already. And so the idea of having this ceiling check is that, hey, we kind of want to check, like, if we're crouching, which I'll show later, we kind of want to check, is there a ceiling where where my head is going to be after I uncrouch, and like ground is like, is there floor under me right now? And we could do the same purposes with the player, because obviously it's along that transform. It's along the same X position, and we'll just need to displace it with Y. But I tend to find it a little bit easier to just have child objects so that you can like freely move it around without too much issue. Does that make sense? Okay, for sure. And so again, I just want to show, hey, like, we don't really like this clipping because it doesn't kind of perfectly make sense with how like it's being supported by this little corner. And so one way we can fix that is what we're going to do is we're going to have two different colliders. And this is something that's really useful for a lot of games for hitbox accuracy. If you guys have seen like the subreddit r/ like hitboxes or something, or what, I forgot what it's called exactly, but like things that are like really particularly accurate in terms of the animation, it's most likely because they used several different hitboxes instead of just one hitbox. And so we want to try to do the same thing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to actually create a circle collider. And this circle collider is definitely too big right now, but we kind of want it to kind of graze the edges of this player for his bottom half. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on this, hold Alt to scale it relatively, or we should actually scale it on this side. Oops, sorry. And we're going to move it slightly. Oh, that's the player. We're going to move the circle collider slightly. Nah. Here we go. Just slide it into position until you kind of get it right into place. So mine's gonna be like right this. This is really freeform. Doesn't matter like entirely. It just kind of wants it to be a little bit more accurate than the rectangle. And obviously we don't need this rectangle to be here anymore. So we can just have this rectangle kind of scaled to just the player's head for now. And so we have this. And so now we have a hitbox that's a little bit more accurate than our last one. So if we drop it into our scene again, you can see here.
Wait, how do you move your hitbox up or down? Like you have the circle, but how do you move it up or down? Like from the head to the torso?
So me personally, I just kind of click on each one like individually and shape it. If you click on the right side, then it fixes the left side. And if you click on the bottom side, it fixes the top side.
Okay, I think I got it. I think my
so
circle's
that's kind of
good
my
enough.
idea. And so now we can see like the hitbox is a little bit more accurate. So that's one thing about hitboxing that we need to keep in mind. But we still don't quite have. We're still not quite sure on movement. Oh, actually we are. Sorry. I forgot that we did indeed add the ground checks. And so the reason why we were bugging out last time is because we didn't fill out the ground check and ceiling check fields for the character controller script. So the script wasn't really compiling correctly. Wait, so then why did we need? So yeah, we have the rectangular hitbox because of the idea that several hitboxes will usually be more accurate than a singular hitbox. So like theoretically, we could just have again, like one circle or one rectangle, but a rectangle combined with a circle to make this kind of shape is a little bit more accurate than just one big rectangle or one big circle, because those might be too big or too small based on how we scale it. For sure, yeah. So that's why we have two different ones. And if we click play again, then you can see that our player can indeed face different directions, which is based on the character controller, and move in different directions. But there's an issue. Hey, we're moving a little bit too slowly. I'm also just going to slide this back here. We're moving it too slowly. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to add another data field to our...
Wait, how did you make him move?
So I attached this player movement script to him, and the code's right here if you want to copy it again. And the idea of this player movement script, my guy just kind of looks around. Yeah, so I'll be fixing that right now. The reason why your guy is kind of just looking around is likely because our speed, the distance we're actually moving him by, which is direction times time.fixedDeltaTime, is a really, really, really small value. So another useful thing to do is we can define a public float run speed under the player movement script. And what we can do is we can say direction times time.fixedDeltaTime gives us, and then times run speed is going to give us a value that is going to be a lot higher than just this, assuming that run speed is greater than or equal to 1. So let's try that. And if we look here, we indeed have the run speed variable that we can kind of modify. And so I'll set mine to let's try 30 for now and see what that does. And let's see. So now we zoom around. So now we have the basics of it. It's a little bit too fast because we can.
Wait, so how did you get him to move? Again, I have him go in the direction, or was it okay? Never mind. I think Jared got it.
Oh, you good? I can show my code again. But yeah, so we have that. We have a character controller public variable, and a float public variable for run speed, and a variable for direction to store. Because we talk about direction in two different functions. So we have direction, and we determine the direction by using the input. And we don't need this anymore because it was just for debugging. And then we actually move our player using the character controller script. So controller.move, because move is a very useful function within this script. And then we leave the rest of these false because we don't really want to talk about that quite now, right now. Is everyone good on that?
Christian, can we see the player movement script? Because I think multiple people are having the same issue now.
Okay. Yeah.
It's the can't drag in the character controller script into the inspector.
Huh. It's really weird. They have this line exactly.
Yeah, at that exact line.
Do you have any ideas, Jerry? Because mine.
I wasn't sure. Like, is there something we need to specify that it's a script to put in?
Usually, no. If the character controller script is in the assets folder, then it recognizes this as a potential like class to. That it recognizes as a class. Maybe try putting serialized field. I think that's what it's. Wait, let me double check. Serialized field. Sorry. If you do this, will that show up? Serialized field is like a very similar thing, where you should still be able to drag in a script or some sort of value or something. Your player just falls. Oh yeah. So the reason why your player is falling is because under rigid body, you want to go to constraints, and we don't really want. This is a 2D game, so we just want our player to like move left and right. So what we're gonna do is we freeze rotation on Z. Sorry, I might not have said that.
Can you go back to the script one more time to look at the serialized tab? I think we missed it.
Yeah, right here. I can check Discord as well. That's so strange. What we can also do is, I'll do something else. We can also do another method where we're going to define this as a local variable, character controller 2D. And what we're gonna do is,
it's because you're.
What's up? So what we're gonna do is within the start function, we can actually say controller equals game object dot get component, and we'll say character controller 2D. And this should still be the same thing if your player movement script is under the same object as the player movement script. So let's go ahead and save that and test if it still works. Your player just stays stuck in the air even though you have rigid body 2D. Does your character have a gravity scale currently? So part of it might be because it doesn't have gravity. Part of it might not. Does that work for you, Matthew? So yeah, you could just define it as local variable if you heard me, Jared, and just do this instead. Gravity scale is what?
For the people having that issue, if you try copying those lines of code right now, and copy that into yours and see if that helps.
It fell before, but I don't know why it's not falling now. Can you post a screenshot and in the questions chat? And also, I think Athena might be able to help you if Jared's busy. But yeah, I'm gonna try to move on just to make sure we have enough time to cover most of the stuff I want. Okay, so we have our character, and he can move left and right. But we also have that, hey, it's kind of weird how we can move up a slope surface and pop up. So one way we could fix that is by making gravity a little bit more snappy. So we have that. So one way we could do that is just by changing this gravity scale in this rigid body to 1. Another way is decreasing the run speed a little bit so that he can't fly off edges. Where is that? Okay, you got it. Cool. And also there's a slight weird discrepancy where he kind of like slides into the ground a little, he still pops, but it's a little bit less apparent. One thing that we can do is enable continuous collision detection, which basically makes collision a little bit more snappy, so that we're not popping up as much, or like popping into the ground per se. Your player doesn't move at all. Was it moving before, Emily? Okay, so I'll just go over again how to use the player's movement script. And so player movement script. Also, Jarrett, did the copying the lines of code work for those people? Just let me know in the chat. And so we have this player movement script, and it has all of these. If you have that copied down correctly, Emily, you might want to check your console to see if there's any compilation errors. But yeah, pretty much all we have is the player movement script and the character controller script, and all these data fields are kind of filled out. And so, any ideas on what next we need to implement for this character to start be able to interact with the level how we want to? Jumping. Yes. All right, so yes, right now we don't really have any way of jumping. And so what we want to do is within this update function, we also want to kind of check, hey, do we want to jump right now? So the way we're going to do that is we're going to define a bool is jumping, and we'll leave it uninitialized. And within this update function, we're going to say, hey, not direction, is jumping is going to be equal to input dot get button down, and we'll say jump. And I'll show you what this parameter of jump really means in a second. But this is going to be the idea of on every frame, we are going to check, is the player in trying to jump? And by player, I mean like the actual person playing the game, not the object. And so instead of just running false on these, we can just check the movement move function and say, hey, the third parameter is for jump. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to pass is jumping to it. And so if we do that, we should now be able to send whether or not we want to jump to the player. So let's try that and try it with the spacebar, and it works. But you can see here, we're gonna have slight bugs. So real quick, I want to get some updates in the chat on if you guys are like caught up or not. I guess I can, we could spend like a couple minutes making sure everyone's caught up. I want to make sure I don't lose anybody.
Can we pull up player movement one more time? Sorry.
For sure. Yeah.
I think there's still issues with it.
Okay. So yeah, we have these. Did I create a player layer? Yes, I had to manually create the player layer. Oh yeah, that might be an issue. So I mentioned this earlier, but we have a what is ground layer mask, and what I did is we defined a player layer using this add layer function, and I placed only the player under it, and I disabled the player from being ground. So that basically means if we just show right now what is ground includes player, then we're gonna kind of get, we still get a weirder version where like we're kind of slowed down. But then if we disable it, then we kind of zip around more. So that might be a function, that might be part of it, Jarrett, of people not being able to move around.
Sorry, could you repeat that again? I think we both missed it.
Yeah, so part of it might be, did they put their player under the player layer? And the way you do that is just you add a layer, and then you type in player right here.
I think we have that, yeah.
And then what is ground includes doesn't include the player. Do you have that? or nah?
Yeah, it's coming to. I think it's still the I don't think that they're getting the script. Like it's not being able to reference the script, the character controller 2D script.
It still can't reference this character controller script.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Even with this line, or no?
Yeah, both are still
Hmm.
having issues.
I'll just look at it myself real quick. Who is it?
Okay.
Sorry. That's this one. Sorry for all the errors, folks. Didn't expect it to be this buggy on your guys' side. Is it this one that's wrong, Jarrett? Yeah. I'll just spend the next like 15 debugging. Not probably miss something. Yeah. Okay, I guess what I'll do is I'm not quite sure what everyone's missing, so I can just make another script from scratch with you guys. Christian, yeah, that's my bad. I'll make sure everyone's caught up before moving on. That's more important. Sorry, I didn't know that a lot of people are having issues. That's my bad. Okay, so we're just gonna go ahead and reset this player one more time. We'll reset him to. We'll just, if anything, let's just disable this one for now. And I'm going to create a 2D object that's a sprite. And we'll name this new player. We'll name it new fox actually. And right now it's just an XY position with a sprite render. And the sprite we want is going to be under Sunnyland, artwork, sprites, player, and we'll click on idle. And so let's just pass that in there. And so we just have this guy. Okay, so now once we have that, what we want to do is we're just going to drag this character controller. And we have this imported character controller 2D script. And we want to fill out these data fields before we do anything else. So what we're going to do is we're going to add this new fox to the player level. And we're going to define what is ground to everything besides the player. We're going to need to fill out these ground checks and ceiling checks. So we'll just create 2 empty objects under this new fox. I'll name one ground check. We'll name one ceiling check. And we're going to drag both of those into the fields. And then we're going to need to move the ground check a little bit lower. And we'll move the ceiling check a little bit higher. All right. How did you make new fox? Okay, so I made new fox with create 2D object sprite, and then I kind of just click and drag this sprite that's under Sunnyland, artwork, sprites, player, idle. This is basically Sunnyland is basically a free asset package that I grabbed from the Unity store, and it's just like a series of a bunch of like cool little pixel arts, and so I just use this idle frame for the sprite, and so that's how I made this. And so we have the character controller script, and we filled out these data fields, and we're gonna have to add a rigid body to it, and we're gonna say continuous detection, freeze rotation, and that's gonna be it for now. And then we need to add a collider. We're gonna add a box collider to it and a circle collider. And so we want this to kind of fit the fox's sprite. So we're just going to go ahead and slide this downwards to kind of fit it. And slide it a bit more. So kind of, we'll be a little generous this time to make sure it looks a little bit more accurate. Cool. And then we're also going to need to edit the box collider. So we'll do this. So we'll do it something like this. So it roughly shapes the fox. And then now we should have this guy just falling. So now it just falls. And again, we want to be able to make it move. So we're going to go ahead and make a movement script and drag it onto the fox. And we'll see if this works. And define run speed to be a value more than 0. So let's say, I'll just do it 20 this time. And I'm just testing to see if this will work for the sake of you guys. So right now it's not working. So yeah, there was an issue in our setup. Let's double check. We're just gonna enable air control because that's something else that I'll talk about later. Oh, okay, now it's working. All right, is it working for you guys or no? I'll also show my script again. Any thumbs up, thumbs down, just let me know. Kind of just want to get a feel for if it's working for you guys or not with that setup and this script. Also paste this script. So yeah, sorry for flooding the chat, but I pasted the script if any of you guys just want to paste it too. Thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat, please. I just want to kind of know if you guys are able to move it or not. Works now? Interesting. Not quite sure what it was then. All right, good that it works for you, Peter. Anyone else want to give me some input on how we're doing? Works now as well. That's so strange. I literally don't even know what that would have been. But yeah. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so sorry that you guys got stuck on that. That's why I must have just missed something that I did on instinct. But yeah, so again, to get a little bit back on track, we want to be able to jump. So the way we're going to do that is we have this isJumping Boolean local variable within a variable for the class, and we pass that in as our third argument. And so we should be able to get the input based on this input.getButtonDownJump. But the strange thing is, what exactly is jump? Because that's not really a key, like a key on our keyboard, you know? So the way we check what jump is we can go to edit and we go to project settings. And we're gonna go to input manager. And we can kind of see that there are a bunch of these categories, like horizontal, vertical, fire one. You might have seen these before, if anything. Most likely horizontal and vertical. And so we're going to click under jump right here. And we're going to notice, hey, it says jump is the name of it. And the positive button is space. And so the input manager is this really useful kind of interface where you can create custom like categories of input and determine what's the positive and what's the negative of that. What's joystick button 3? Honestly, I'm not quite sure since I'm not familiar with controller schemes. Oh, okay. So apparently, according to my wonderful roommate, it's when you press into the joystick. So like when it clicks. So that might be what joystick button 3 is. But yeah, so if we define this to be something like, so if we check here, we have left, right, AD. So like, let's just say, for example, alt positive will be T. And now let's try playing. And we have, and we click, well, T doesn't quite work yet. Did we enable jumping? 1 second. So we'll test that out once we look at our script again. You don't even have a controller connected? Oh, that's so strange. You can go ahead and just change the positive to space, just like this, in case like that's overriding something. But that should work. And so now we want to say, we want to figure out how to jump. And let's double check that it wasn't working. It's not working right now. And again, one way we check is debug.log and is jumping. Let's say if we were jumping. And so this is basically just to check if we're going to get the input correctly. And we're getting a couple frames of true when we click spacebar, so we are getting the input correctly. So let's just double check again. Move, jump. Did I define what is ground correctly? Huh. Well, it was working before we remade the blocks, so maybe that was related to why people couldn't move earlier. Let's see. So we're definitely getting the input correctly. This was working earlier. I apologize. So I think part of it is that we kind of set up our grounded variable wrong, so I'm just double checking that. False. Yeah, we're getting a lot of falses for no reason, so I must have just set that up wrong. And let's double check what is ground. And we're saying that everything, check if everything is ground makes it true. What did I type in character controller? You don't need to type it, but I'm just basically checking if grounded is true, because right now there's I created a small bug in my code where we're not actually grounded for some reason, and I'm not sure where that's coming from. So wow, there's a very big issue with that, and I apologize for that. Not quite sure what's going on here. Technical difficulties again, my bad. Live debugging, yes, that's part of the fun. Right, guys? We're debugging together. Why is this not working? I'm really curious. We'll just play the tag. Player. Yes, change children. And we'll say what is ground does not include the player. This is indeed live debugging. Dang, I apologize. I'm kind of like stuck on what I set up wrong. We did all of our checks. Let me just drag in this box collider to here. What is ground does not include the player. Ground checks, delete checks out. Debug.logs grounded. If you guys want to go and grab like a glass of water or something, feel free to right now. I just need to find this so that we can continue. Not really sure what's going on.
Is it necessary to continue with the thing?
We could honestly go without jumping for now because there's just like a weird error with that. So if you guys want to go without jumping, I just gave the logic of it, but we can just move on. I can show you guys some other stuff if you like. That's still pretty useful. What are you guys' thoughts in the chat? Yeah, this literally worked like when I was working on this like an hour before the tutorial and even like the day before. So I'm not really sure. It's working for you? Awesome. What about you guys? Is it working for you guys? For the rest of y'all?
I can jump if I press space.
Oh wait. Oh, okay. That's awesome. Okay. So if your guys' thing is working, then I'll just keep going. I thought everyone else was having a similar issue. So I think it was working for this guy. Let's check if it was. Okay, that guy kind of zoomed up way too high. So we're just gonna say, hey, we're gonna give you less jump force. Cool. All right, so if it's working for you guys, I'll just keep going. And so any ideas on the next thing we need to add for this guy? So just a hint, if we kind of try to go right here, we can't particularly move under here. So what's something that we could do? What's a typical aspect of platforming that people add?
Giving up.
That too. Well, I'll just say we want to be able to crouch now. So if we want to be able to crouch, then we want like crouching will then allow us to disable this top collider, which is a big factor of why we wanted to add 2 collider boxes. So in order to do that, that's why we have this little crouch disable collider box right here. And so what we're going to do is our head box is kind of defined within this box collider. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and click and drag this into the crouch disable collider script, crouch disable collider field under the character controller script. And so now if we click play, oh, actually,
wait, sorry, what did you drag? Player box collider 2D?
So what I did is we have the head, the head of this sprite, the collision, is kind of defined by this box collider, yeah? So if we want to sneak under this little platform, because there's open space right here, you can see how this little top collider is blocking us. So what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to kind of disable this box collider, and so that we can move under this platform. Yes. So the idea is removing the collider when crouching. So part of the fun of this character controller is that it kind of deactivates and activates the it handles a lot of the logic for disabling it, but we still need to get the input of crouching. So again, we're just going to go ahead and go within this character
Jared?
script.
Just Jared? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. And we're going to say, hey, we're going to create a Boolean is crouching. And so again, we're going to do similar thing. Input dot get button down. And we're going to say crouch. And then we're going to pass in is crouching. And then does this logic make sense to everybody? Because if we run this, it should be able to disable it based on the character controller. Oh. And so we have a small error because I forgot to mention something else. So what we're going to do is, you notice how we had crouch here, but we didn't quite see crouch when we went to the project settings input manager. There's not really a crouch here. So what we're gonna do instead is we can right click on any of these like inputs and we can duplicate it. And that creates another entry. But we don't want this to be jumping. So we're obviously gonna name this crouch. And what we're doing right now is we're defining our own category of input. And the positive button for crouch is going to be, let's say, S. And we don't need an alt positive button. And that shouldn't be good. And so again, we went to edit, project settings, input manager, and we made a new input entry using this part. So let's see if that works. And we go here and we can kind of see it, but not quite yet. Not quite yet there. And so we're going to go ahead and check. What's the code you added for crouch? I added this part. So we did this. And we had to pass in the is crouching. And so right here, I'll just show you real quick what is crouching does in the character controller script. And what this does is under the move function, we get past a crouch variable. And this is part of the fun of character controller 2D is that it kind of checks for us whether or not like there's something above us when we're trying to uncrouch. And then it also handles the actual crouching in terms of, hey, if we're crouching, we decrease the speed. How do you see the hitboxes when testing? What I do here is gizmos, and so part of it is that I have the character selected whenever I click play. And so when I click play, we still have this highlighted, so you can see if I click off of it, then I don't see the boxes. But if I do click on it, then I have these. Also, I need to close this. And your crouch doesn't show up in input manager. Yeah, so as we did a second ago, we actually had to create crouch. So the way we create crouch is we kind of just right clicked on jump. We duplicated the array element, and I'll call this crouch. And we defined a positive button for ourselves, and I'll define it as, we'll do down this time. And that's going to be the down arrow key. And we do that. Does that work for you, Emily? Again, cool. And then you need to make sure you also have to make sure that you have the crouch disable collider active. And so let's try that. So also I need to get rid of this debug command, sorry. Debug. Let's get rid of that. So now we have this. Let's see if we can sneak under our platform. But you can see that, hey, this box collider is kind of not really staying off yet. So what we're gonna do is we actually have to define it a little bit differently. And we have to say that if we're not crouching, so this is the idea of, I guess I should rewind a bit, but you can see how there's a small bit of difference between the input for jumping and crouching in terms of like the apparent logic behind it when you look at a program. And so if we look here at our program, you just kind of have to click spacebar once in order to jump. But for crouch, yeah, it can only take one input. Yeah, it's very similar idea to that. It's like it's only checking for when the button is down. So it get button down checks for the frame that the button is pressed. But the thing is, crouching is kind of this idea of we have to hold it. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if crouching is false, so that's what we're gonna do like this. That's when we're gonna do. That's when we're gonna be checking for an input get button down, and then if we are crouching, then we're gonna check if the is crouching equal input dot get button up should be defined. Oops, no, not get button up. Get button. Oh, it is get button up. That's weird. Crouch. So this is basically going to determine. This is part of it. This isn't the exact code, but the idea of this is once we push down the button, we just want to check when the button is released. So if the button is released, we're actually going to drag it right here. If we are crouching and input.get button up crouch is true, then we're gonna say is crouching is now false. Does this make sense to people? Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat. And so yeah, so obviously it's a lot simpler when it's just a snap kind of push of a button versus a hold button. But this is one idea of logic that you can use on the crouching, since it's a hold down button. So if we go ahead and test that, let's go ahead and make sure this is, make sure this is saved. So now we can see if we click on the player, then we can kind of keep it down. And we still don't fit under this, but that's more because our circle collider is a little too big. So if we just kind of edit it really quick, make it a little bit shorter, then now we have, hey, we can now slide under this platform. Huzzah. But again, we kind of just still have, also if you haven't already, you should enable air control, which is my mistake for not mentioning it. Air control lets us control our character in the air, which is how most games go now, where you can kind of control yourself like this, change direction. But yeah, so that's the basics of crouching, jumping, and movement under Unity 2D. And I apologize that there kind of was a lot of bugs. But like I still have a bit of time to go over some more things that I think are interesting. So one thing to note about the way we implemented it is that the character can actually get stuck a lot if you like press on the sides of platforms. And this isn't really a bug. This is like it's kind of a meme to say this, but like this is actually like a feature of Unity, because the natural physics material of the colliders is something where if you permanently push against an object, then you can kind of stick to it. But we don't want that because that doesn't really make sense for a program. So what we're gonna do is you already have this defined within the assets folder because I imported it. But what we're gonna do now is we kind of don't want that to happen. So we're going to see that the player has these physics material 2D elements that you could edit, but they kind of have none attached to them right now. So they're just using a default physics material. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to click here, create, and we're gonna say physics material 2D. And we'll name this slippery 2.0 since we already have slippery defined. And we can see that there's already a friction coefficient on it, but we don't really want that. So we're just gonna set that to 0. And now we're going to slide that physics material onto our 2 different colliders. So now let's see if that works. And now you can see, even though we press up against it, we don't really get stuck anymore, which is really good for us. It still kind of does the same for this one, for like when it's clipped on the bottom. That's more because I made mine bigger than the actual circle. So that's not really too much of an issue. That's more of me just, I need to edit the colliders a little bit. This tutorial is too hard. Okay, where's it hard? I just want to rewind then. Yeah. If you guys think I go too fast, I'm sorry. I'll rewind a lot. Do you guys need me to rewind on something or no? My jumps don't seem to have. Your crouch is failing. My jumps don't seem to have consistent height. Interesting. Wait, let me check if mine has consistent height. Your jumps are every 3rd jump is normal. I think I haven't quite experienced the same, but I'm down to check that out if you post a screenshot. The crouch is failing. Do you have the same logic here, Alexander? Where we only kind of have to check if the get button up is true. Also, I'll check in Discord.
Did you program anything for ground check?
Sorry? Ground check is. Do you mean like right, like the what is ground? Oh, sorry.
What happens to me
right
is
here.
that I can't get off the platform. Like on that first like short platform, I can go all the way to the edge, but I can't get off. I can't, and then once I get to the edge, I can't jump. I can't move nothing.
Ground check is just an empty game object that has a transform, and then I dragged that into this ground check field right here for character controlling 2D. That's strange. I don't know what's going on there. Do you have the same thing, Emily?
Just
Also,
I can't get off the first
Alexander, if you
platform.
want to show your. Okay. You can't get off the first. Is anybody else having a similar idea? Oh, Alexander figured it out. Awesome. Matthew and Alex are still having a very strange jump. Sushrut's not. I think Athena just messaged in the tutorial chat, Sushrut, if you want to check that out.
I don't think Jarrett knows what's wrong either.
Okay, so jumping being weird, let's see what that would be. If one of you guys could like screenshot so you're saying every 3rd jump is normal, the other 2 jumps are not normal. I think I would need to see code for that to work. Do you want to screenshot your jump logic, Matthew? If you like. My inconsistencies in the jumps are inconsistent. Oh no. That's really strange. Are you guys like launching off of platforms in a weird way, or are you just like literally standing still every time? Because when I stand still, kind of like works roughly the same. They're really short jumps. Then there's one that's higher. If I stand still, it won't jump sometimes. Do you guys have? Oh, one sec. Oh my gosh, the sneeze didn't come out. Sorry. Do you guys have the what is ground? Do you guys have what is ground, including everything but the player, and the player is under the player layer? Can't spam the jump button. If you mean like in the air, if you mean you can't jump from the air, then that's intentional, but also, oh, every so often it doesn't jump. Huh. Interesting. That must be part of the. I think that's probably part of the grounded part in the character controller 2D script. So you can move. Awesome. Yes. Many of us are having issues. Yeah, I didn't expect this many bugs when I when I was making this. So I apologize for that. So I'll definitely I'll just take it way back, and the rest of what I want to cover I can show it to you guys later. Jumps are inconsistent in terms of force. Yeah, I'm just gonna spend the rest of this time slot to probably bug fix, because I would rather have you guys to have a working scene. So jumps are inconsistent in terms of force. So if anything, you guys can unmute and share your screen, because if one of you guys would like to
my
show,
big issue.
Going to head out, yeah. Yeah, thank you for coming, Alexander. Sorry about all the bugs. Yeah. Would one of you guys like to screen share your bugs, and I'll kind of try to fix what I can.
Can I go?
You disabled screen sharing.
Oh, I disabled. Okay, I'll enable it. Cool. All right, Peter, you want to show me what's up?
All right, so
cool.
I think this is my game. So wait, what is it playing? Oh my gosh. Move this out of the way. All right, I think my crouch doesn't work. How do I show how do I show the colliders again?
Just click on new Fox at the left side. There, yeah. And then try clicking. Oh, wait.
Why is he not moving anymore? Did I stop playing?
You're outside you clicked into the scene instead of game. If you click on game, then it should start taking input.
Hey Christian.
Yeah, what's up, Jarrett?
Could you repost the newer version of the player movement script again in the chat for people to see, just real quick?
Yes. I'll just paste it real quick. Or I'll just send a screenshot in Discord.
So this is why I hold crouch. It doesn't actually disable the collider. It just slows me down.
And then... did you drag the... Oh yeah, you need to drag crouch. You see the crouch disable collider field?
I see.
Yeah. Try dragging the box collider.
Oh wait, this one. Wait, no circle.
No,
wait,
box
no,
collider.
Box.
Yeah. It's weird because like the circle's not the head.
But, yeah.
He didn't stop the game. Oh, sorry.
No.
But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then I think the jump thing. Wait, can I recreate it? Like I did like. It was like super inconsistent. Like I had like a super jump or something like that. Okay, I can't recreate it. Whatever. Thanks.
Cool. The player movement script is in the Discord chat. If you guys didn't see it, would one of you else like to show what's going on with yours? Yeah, Emily.
Okay, so
I
can't get off. I can jump though. Like okay, if I stand right here and I press
Did you
jump,
edit your character controller script, Emily?
The jumping is really inconsistent too. Like sometimes when I press jump, it doesn't jump.
Wait, Emily, can I see your character controller script?
Yeah, I didn't add anything to it.
Oh no, Peter. I just this part of the sticky behavior that could be I haven't let me type change.
But yeah, jumping is like sometimes I jump, sometimes I don't jump when I press space.
Because you're getting an unassigned reference error, and because you're getting an unassigned reference error for M ground check, which means that you're not defining it, but you should have defined it. Can you go
I didn't
back?
change the script at all.
You didn't change it at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay, can you click on your console again under Unity? Just click on your Unity window. Variable ground check.
That's why I was asking if we did anything with ground check.
No. Okay, so click on your character controller track. I'd just redrag ground check from your hierarchy into the field for character controller 2D real quick.
Okay.
And then clear your console. Yeah, and then just play again. Let's see. Why
I think I'm
is
still
so
having errors.
that's like one of the issues with it. Because ground check is really important for determining if you can like determining if you can jump in platform collision. Let's see. Looking at it right now. Catch disable collider is correct.
Peter's having an issue too.
Yeah, I saw that. I can get to it later. It's so weird. When I was running this earlier, like nothing really was going on poorly for me. But
I have no idea if my
there's just
crouch
so
works
much.
either.
Yeah, we can get to that in a bit. Let me see your player movement script again, Emily. So directions. So this is pretty much what I have, right? Let me double check. Character controller.
Also, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to have this line of code in, but Jarrett told me to add this one.
Line of code is fine. It doesn't really do anything, I think.
Okay. Well, anyways. Yeah, I just compared my player movement to yours and it looked exactly the same to me.
So one thing is wait, never mind. Okay.
Oh.
So
Thank you.
no. That's just gonna make it always evaluate
wait.
to true.
Sorry,
You know-
Jarrett told me to make it true in the Discord.
I see.
Let's-
It's crouch instead of crouch.
Oh wait.
Oh my god, where did I do it?
Wait, you typed crouch?
Wait, where did I do crouch?
In your second if statement, you typed crouch.
Oh wow.
Oh no.
Wait.
in the
crouch.
string. Yeah, so that's one part of it.
Wait, but I was having this issue before I even added crouch.
Yeah. So
Let's see if it's
wait.
still
So
an error,
what?
just in case.
Let me see the issue again.
Yeah, I still can't. The same errors exist.
So click on player, under the hierarchy, and then can you disable? So click on the arrow next to main camera in the hierarchy, and click on background. Yeah, disable. That's good. Okay. So what you have right now is you have a. So click on player again. So scroll downwards. Right now you have two box collider 2Ds. So one of them shouldn't be there. I'm not sure which one. You see how there's a bigger, yeah. Okay, so just
it's
disable.
Probably the second one.
Yeah, disable the second one then.
Wait. I'm not sure which one it is anymore.
It's the second one.
Oh.
I think if I looked correctly.
I don't see it though.
Wait, now it just disappeared. Okay. Click extend and then click edit collider.
Oh wait, this is it. There we go.
Oh yeah. So whichever one is the bigger one, the bigger rectangle, you don't want it to.
Oh my god! Wait, why can't I jump and move?
You have to enable. So go to the inspector and then look for the character controller 2D component.
Wait, the inspect. Is this the inspect? Oh yeah. Could you control
And then
this?
enable air control.
Oh.
And also, you still have 2 different box colliders, so that
Oh,
shouldn't
frick.
be there. One of them shouldn't be there.
Is it this one? I did it right. Why is that? Why do I still see it? I disabled one of my box colliders though. Wait,
You
actually,
can just delete it. Just
both of
delete
my-
one of them.
okay. Oh, there we
Okay.
go.
Well, no, that was the one you wanted actually.
Oh, frick
So
me.
disable. So just modify the second. Enable the second box collider and modify the collider to be correct. So edit collider.
Is it not the correct one? I thought it was this.
So no. So it's supposed to be the rectangle is supposed to just cover the head. So you shrink it.
Oh.
Because the idea is that you want a smoother movement on like when you collide with a ramp. And so having a circle, having a rectangle, like a strict rectangle at the bottom is going to make it move a lot weirder.
I didn't even crouch.
Well, we can't tell if we can crouch or like unless you look at the colliders.
Well, I didn't
because we
press
don't
the
have
crouch button.
animation.
Isn't down the crouch button?
It depends on what you defined it as.
I said down.
Hi, Athena. So if down is the crouch button, click on player again.
I can jump through it. Now I'm having the same problem as Peter.
you
Hello,
can
I'm
jump through it.
here in case people need help.
Oh, this tutorial was.
There are a lot more bugs than I thought there would be, because when I was just running it on my own, it was like, okay, but apparently there are a lot of like niche things that might have gone wrong for the others that I didn't quite prepare for. So there are a lot
Peter,
of
unmute
bugs.
yourself.
There are a lot of
You-
bugs.
Peter, I think we have the same error now.
Oh wait, is somebody
Oh, did you finish the tutorial?
Well, there's just we kind of like I had to
There
take
were
a
so
step
many
back on what I
errors,
needed to
I
cover
don't think
because
we
there
can
was a
finish
lot of
it.
bugs.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
yeah,
can like maybe like
it's-
go through the bugs. It's like still a good learning experience. It's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's what I'm doing right now with the people that are still
Because
here.
I don't
A
think
lot of
anyone
people
has
also
it
had to
correct.
go for like dinner or
bye,
something. I don't know.
Matthew.
Bye. I feel bad though. I
Peter,
didn't know that there would be
I think
so
we're having
many
the same
bugs.
issue where we can look, we can jump through the thing.
Are you showing
the-
something, Athena? Or wait, that's
I can
that
see it, yeah.
that rock
Also,
isn't
my jump
supposed to
is
be
so inconsistent.
that rock
sometimes I
isn't
press
supposed to be a platform, by the way.
Sometimes I press jump, nothing happens. Look.
Wait, can I see your collider again?
Yeah, click on the player. No,
Oh.
yeah.
Hmm.
This is
wait,
too
let me
hard for me.
check.
I don't get it.
Also,
I literally
I'm
don't get
so-
anything we did.
It's
Oh.
really strange how.
There's also nothing. Wait,
Felt
is
it
your
explode.
ceiling check and your ground check aren't? I'm not
If
sure
you
that
guys-
matters, right?
If you guys want to go to the breakout rooms as well, we can help you guys there.
We kind of like I kind of decided to like take a step back from covering any material, and I'm just down to like bug fix for
Guys,
everyone
'cause
that's
I
here.
think-
Oh,
Everyone
wait,
here
is
has
somebody-
issues.
There's
Is this
there are
somebody
only 3
else's?
people left that are all having issues.
Yeah, no one
Emily,
was
Sushruth,
able to
and
figure it out.
Peter.
okay. What's happening? What's happening?
That's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, so
No, no, like
Peter
what's
and I
the what's
have,
the bug? What's the bug?
do you want to help? I don't know how to pronounce your name. I'm so sorry, but you know who I'm talking about.
Sushrut, yeah,
Oh,
it's
Sushrut. Yeah. Sushrut. Do you want to help Sushrut, Athena? 'Cause
Yeah,
I think
sure.
Peter and I have the same problem, so I guess Christian
How
can
do I
tackle this
slap you
one.
into a breakout room?
Sasha, do you want to come to breakout 1?
oh, okay, on
Alright.
Discord. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Hello.
Wait, do you want me to join the Discord?
Can you?
Okay.
This is weird. Should I mute on Zoom? Yeah. I should probably do
Yes, please, if you could. Okay, so
Oh,
yeah,
hi, Peter.
Rewind.
Oh, wait, but you should unmute yourself on Zoom because, yeah, they're right, or I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
how this is being set up.
If anything, we could just drop the Zoom call, and I'll join you guys in the breakout.
Okay, yeah,
room, 'cause I
okay,
just
we're gonna
wanna
drop
help
the Zoom
bug
call.
fix. Yeah.
Yeah, drop the Zoom call.
Okay. I'm gonna stop the recording.